See how it works. It says setting up your meeting for Facebook Live. Done. Redirecting to Facebook Live page.
I think you're on.
I think so too. Let's see. Are all things going here? Okay, I don't see my page yet. We're just going to run with it, record it, and whoever sees it, sees it. All right, my dear. Hello. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for having me on. I'm so excited to be here.
Of course. So my name is Heather Morrison, and this is Bold Breakthroughs with Heather Morrison. Thank you so much for joining us. Gonna record and we're all set. Okay, so I'm so excited to have Miss Melony here today. I wanted to give you a little bit of overview about what Melony's all about, and then we can dive right in. So Melony oversees and personally runs 3 organizations, which just makes me tired saying that. She's an expert in assisting others in developing clarity, direction, and focus, enabling them to break through current realities to reach their goals. Melony specializes in working with ministry leaders and entrepreneurs who want to make an impact in the world with their gifts. Melony challenges and encourages others to live with passion and purpose, to be the leaders they are called to be. Bam, welcome, Melony. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Of course, of course. So Melony and I actually met in a coaching group. Even coaches have coaches, right? We're both still in that group. And we have just figured out a way how to collaborate with each other. So even though some of our spaces cross over into each other, together we rise, and there's room for everybody. So I wanted to have Melony on today because she's been such a gift to me. And so hopefully she can be a gift to you as well. So I wanted to find out if you could take us on a journey as to how your company came to be, and a little brief background as to what your company is.
Well, thanks. So really quickly, I would just say that I was a health coach for 10 years coaching. I've been an entrepreneur for 20 plus years. Don't want to age myself, but I've been an entrepreneur for quite some time. And for about 10 years, solely what I did was health coaching. Kind of went through a season of life changes where I lost 5 people in my life that I loved in a very short time. So in 9 months, I lost 5 people, and then I went through a 2-year grief cycle. As I came out of that grief cycle, I knew that I wanted my life to make a difference. And I wanted to do something more. I really felt God was calling me to be a speaker and to write a devotion. And so I started doing some informational interviews, doing some research, and I'd had a lot of coaching background and training, but I wanted to take it to another level. So that's when I started investing. I did a lot of, got several different coaching certifications that I have. I also went through a 2.5-year a pastoral leadership discipleship program, and got a speaking coach, a business coach, and, kind of doing that. I mean, like you said, coaches need coaches. And so I just knew, like, at first I would say, like, I didn't feel called. I knew I was called, but I didn't feel equipped for what I was called to do. And so I was trying to make sure that I could do that. But what happened is doors just kept opening. And so I would say, I had a real passion for, I met somebody who opened the first safe house in Oregon. And when I did that, I really kind of switched, as I'd volunteered a lot of my time helping cancer survivors. And so what I did is I switched to helping survivors of human trafficking and domestic violence, which led to doing kind of adopting 40 people this first Christmas. And from that led to kind of competing it was called Mission Seed Fund. I don't know if they're still around, but that's like Shark Tank for missionaries. So I competed in that and became a finalist, and kind of, I just really started sharing my message, and people were like, I want to help you. So from that, I was able to start my nonprofit, Courageous Beginnings. And I also run the Christian Network, which that's the outreach arm for that. So those kind of came together in tandem because it was I needed a place where I could be me, where I could take my mask off and say, this is where I'm in, I'm doing business. But I knew I was quickly learning that if my family and my business weren't in alignment, then I was going to struggle. So I was looking for a balance for that. So that's why I speak a lot now on working from rest and serving from your overflow. And so now I do faith-based coaching. And so for me, I help people create a signature program that they can create impact and come influence. So they can use their platforms to make a difference for God, but also to, to really be able to make a difference in the world. And so I love that. I do like a development coaching. I do some personal development, also business coaching, and really help you find the balance of that and how to create a system that helps you get your message out to the world.
Mm-hmm. I love that. You covered a lot there. One of the things that I'm noticing when I talk to people about what their story is and what brought them into where they are today is that they went through something, right? They went through a grief, they went through a breakdown. And I've heard that before. I think the quote is, before you have your breakthrough, you have to have your breakdown, right? So you had talked about how you gained clarity after you went through that period of grief in your life. And I love that, because a lot of people can use that as their excuse to shut down, right? But you used it as your excuse to really listen to what that lesson taught you, and then realize that you need to share that message with other people, right? You need to go out and help people find their passion and find their way back from whatever, tumultuous time they're going through in their life. So I simply love that. And then I also heard you say that you had done some informational interviews. Can you tell people what those are?
Well, I mean, I think that really is, I think we need to find proof that it can be done. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So find somebody who is doing what you want to do. Right. So I really started speaking to Christian speakers and Christian authors, because I wanted to know, what do I need to know? Like, what systems do you use? Who helped you? What was most helpful to you? And I'll tell you, the one lady, before I started my network, she is really interesting. She said, no matter where you go, no matter where you speak, you need to always be having either someone traveling with you or somebody someplace praying for you. So that was the first thing I did, was I started putting together a prayer team, because sometimes we don't even know where we're going, right? And we need to be praying for the people who we're speaking to. And I know that I'm going to just be me, you guys. This is my breakthrough. This is where I'm bold. So I'm just sharing that I talk about the love of God. But if that's not you, just know that all of this applies to you as well. That you can apply with an informational interview and do that. So I just, sometimes that is a freedom that I needed. I needed to say that I had been through so much, and the difference that was happening in my life was only God could get the credit for it, because it was amazing how I had overcome so much in that time. And during that time, there were so many people who loved me through it. Right. Because really, at one point, I mean, my business was really only a business because of the bills I was paying, because I really did kind of go down. And then I'm like, okay, what do I do now? Right. I'm a mom, and, and so that comeback was really hard. And so when I did that comeback, and maybe, some of you guys are finding yourself there right now because of COVID, right? Like, there's a big switch. So that comeback, we have to really, say, like, who's done it before? Can it be done? And there's a lot of people being successful right now. Right. And, I really paused and said, I'm like kind of in the midpoint of my life. So what do I want the rest of my life to look like? Like, I want to know that I made a difference. I want to know that I leave a legacy. And a lot of us have big platforms, but how are we going to leave a legacy? And that's exactly what I teach people to do, is to be able to leave a legacy, and to be able to use your gifts. Because the other thing is, in that lull, I really felt like, how did I use my gifts? Or I would compare myself, like, well, that's how that person did it. Why can't I do it? Right. And so, comparison is a thief of all joy. And I needed my joy back. So I had to stop comparing myself. And I think, like, what I want to say to you right now, listening, if you see something, if something keeps being drawn to your attention, most of the time we're going to help people who are one or two steps behind us. Right. The other thing, or have been where we're at. Right. And the other thing is, if we're seeing something, it's because we're being drawn to do something for it. We need to stop asking, who's going to do this? You need to be the person to do something. There's a song by Matthew West that says, I keep seeing people hungry, people on the streets, people, whatever it is, it's like a million different things. And it says, God, when are you going to do something? And he says, I did. I sent you. And so I would say that's what I'm saying to you guys today is that if you're seeing something you have that stirring in your spirit, that it's time for you to do something or to play bolder, like, you know, you're saying, and to really collaborate with people. Heather and I, we collaborate together because we have a vision to help a lot of people, right?
Yes. Yes. I love that. I love that you mentioned legacy because that's not something that I really took time out of my business or my life to think about because we're just little hamsters, right? I've got to do this and I've got to do this. And we're in our snow globe of life in our business of, oh, I've got to take care of this. And oh, that's falling and how to keep all the balls in the air. And you blink and 10 years has gone by, right? And you don't think about the legacy that you're leaving or the lives that you want to impact or what you want to leave to your child or your family or people that need you. So I love that you talk about legacy because that's what we're here for, right? We're here to leave a legacy because we're going to be gone. I'm sorry. I don't know if that's news breaking information for anybody, but we're not getting out of this alive, right? So I love that you talk about legacy. The other thing I love that you talk about is reaching out to people. And that takes a special kind of person to reach out and say, I need help here, right? And I don't think people realize this, but it's hugely flattering when someone reaches out to you and says, you are where I want to be. Could you just, you know, sit down with me for 10 or 15 minutes and kind of tell me your story? And people, the number one thing people like to talk about is themselves, right? So if you're asking them, I adore you and I think you're amazing and I just love to hear how you got there, I imagine that you got a lot of people that were willing to share that information with you.
I did, but here's the other thing that thank you. And the other thing that I would say, you guys, is that we have YouTube, right? Who do you want access to that maybe as a coach you can't quite say yes to yet? I mean, I have coaches who I followed for 5 years on Facebook and on YouTube before I actually was able to hire them.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot that you can glean and do and show up and be present and support and say like, okay, what's one thing that I can do? But yes, absolutely, you know, have questions and say, this is what I'm learning to do. Like I ran a photography business for 10 years before, you know, and when I hear new photographers, I have lots of tips and things that I know that I wish someone had told me. And so I'll,
Yep.
you know, like I'll hear them like, oh, give me a call or, you know, let's do a Zoom chat kind of thing. And I'll give them some
Mm-hmm.
nuggets of how it was in my time and let them know like some ways, you know, to help them. And then, you know, but I don't want to do photography anymore. Like that's not my thing at all. So, you know, but there are people who, you know, when I look at, I think the thing is about asking whether it's your coach or, you know, like here's what I believe. And I'll say it this way. I believe we should always have somebody ahead of us and somebody behind us.
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that we should be, you know, having a mentor or a coach that we're looking to gain. And then I believe it's our job when we're leaving a legacy that pick somebody who's that one person or that you can mentor, you can disciple, and you can share that love with to help bring them to where you're at.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Together we rise. I love that. You and I were part of a conference this past weekend, and it was interesting because there was a woman there, Lee Richter, who is I don't know she's not a publicist. I don't know what her title was, but she is amazing. And I went on her Facebook while we were on the call still, and I looked at all of her friends. I'm like, oh, I can't believe that I'm sitting here listening to her talk. So during the conversation, I reached out to her on Facebook and I said, you know, I'm sitting here watching you and thank you so much for pouring your genius into us. And she, after the call, she got back to me and said, you know, oh, it was such a delight to be there and thank you so much. And the reason I bring this up is because during COVID, everyone seems to think we're very isolated. And it's true, we may be isolated physically, but I am not a person that's ever used really Facebook because I think I'm not interested in what I'm doing half the time. I can't imagine anybody else is either, right? But all of a sudden I've discovered Facebook and I've discovered social media. And what this little screen has done for all of us is I think it's brought us together more, right? Because now I have reach to reach. There's 7 billion people in the world. I imagine some of them have internet connections, and those are people that never would have seen me or never would have heard Melony's message, or I never would have seen Lee and been able to reach out to her on such a one-to-one basis if it weren't for the internet. So I love that there's a change happening right now, and it is, I think you're right, Melony. I think going forward, it's going to be more and more about the collaboration and having one person ahead of you and one person behind you. I love that. If you guys are getting ahas, make sure you're dropping those in the Facebook link or the Facebook comments below. We would love to hear those. I would love to ask you if you could give someone like the top 3 hot tips on people that are feeling stuck in their business or even in their life. Do you have like 3 quick little snippets that wouldn't be a project, wouldn't take them years to put together, but something that they could implement relatively quickly?
Sure. The first one that comes to me is when we're feeling stuck or we're in that cycle, right? I think we need to say, like, why am I here? Like, there's a reason why it keeps coming back. And I like to say, like, God, what is it you want me to learn right now? Let me learn quickly because I'm here. But also sometimes I would say in that we can be so overwhelmed as a choice, right? Because we're saying yes and no to some of the wrong things, I would say. But identify, like, what is it, like, I think we need to take a step back and have some self-care. That's the first thing in doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So I know for me, when I've got a lot of that going on and I'm stuck or I'm doing that, I need to say, okay, I need to take a breather. I need to take a step back and go, what is it that I need to do to fill me up? Maybe that's taking a hot bath. Maybe that's taking a walk. Maybe that's just taking, like, putting nothing else on your calendar and taking a day to, like, clear your mind and fill up. And then to be clear, to clearly think about, like, okay, what is my next step? What is just the next step I need to do to move from here? Because sometimes, we have to do something different to get a different result.
Yeah. Yes.
So I would say taking a step back and kind of analyzing, like, what's happening here that's a repeat cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Pause and giving yourself that moment to be clear, to really to think of that clearly. And then I would say ask for help. That's a really hard one. That was a hard one for me to learn. Would be like, okay, I know I need it. This is my next step. Like, who do I know? Who do I know that can help me?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe we need to hire a person. Maybe, maybe we need to take something off our plate and say, like, okay, I don't need to build that landing page. I just need, Heather, who do you know that's a VA that can build landing pages? Or who do you know that can do this? And just take that off your plate, because if that's the thing that's holding you back, you can be a sales machine and selling. But if you're thinking, well, I can't make an offer because I don't have a landing page, or, there's many, like, quite frankly, if you don't have a landing page, all you need to do is tell somebody your email to PayPal and have them send the link to get their money and then send them the link to the program. I mean, there's, a lot of times we're trying to be so perfect or have everything done like this other person and think, like, I have to do this first. So I would say, ask yourself, how can I say yes? Right. So whatever it is, who do I, like, and maybe say, like, who do I need to hire or get the help with? And then this third one is really big. You need to be coachable.
What does that mean?
Well, sometimes we just want to stay in our own way. We just want to keep doing it the way that we're doing it. And we can't, right? Like, if you want a different result, like if you're working with a coach, you need to be like, okay, this is, like, sometimes we have to listen, and not that we can't do it our way. But if you're working with somebody who's had success before, success leaves clues. So if they're doing something, just repeat what they're doing, right? If you're stuck, you need to figure out, okay, I'm stuck. Who's doing this? How can I do it? And, what do I need to do?
I love that. So 2 quotes stood out to me, and I'm a quote queen. I love quotes. Overwhelm is a choice. I love that you said that, because I hear people say, I'm so busy. And my first thought is, well, then you need to talk to the person that schedules your schedule. Oh, that's you, right? You're doing this to yourself. So I love that you put that in such a beautiful format, that overwhelm's a choice. When people say that I'm so busy. Well, why are you so busy, right? What's in your calendar that's keeping you busy? And ask yourself if those things really need to be there. The second one was that you said success leaves clues. And I like that. I love that. And you and I were talking about this yesterday, about how, we seem to think that everybody else has it figured out, right? We seem to think that everybody is doing it perfectly. And, we've all heard the quote, imperfect action, right? Be perfect in action every single time. So I love that you bring up the fact that you don't necessarily need a landing page. An email is perfect, right? Just some way to reach out. And the other thing I think that people are struggling with now too is being, how do you stand out, right? That's going back to everybody's on Facebook and everybody's on social media. How do you stand out in this sea of people that are all fighting for your attention? And when you and I were talking yesterday, we talked about the fact that there's, Oprah came along, right? She dominated the talk show industry. Well, do we really need another Ellen, right? Do we need someone? Of course, because not everybody vibes with Oprah. Not everybody vibes with Ellen. There's so many people. And I always think about it this way. There's really no such thing as original content. And I know that comes as a shock to a lot of people. That's my personal thought. But let me expand on that a little bit. If you listen to people like Tony Robbins quotes Jim Rohn a lot. Mm-hmm. Jim Rohn quotes his mentor, Earl Shoaff, a lot. And Earl Shoaff actually quotes the Bible a lot, right? So there's no such thing as original content in the respect that we're all pulling from the same resources, but you're putting your unique spin on it. And I think that's what is going to make you, because someone's going to vibe with your story, right? Someone's going to hear my story and think, she doesn't have my situation. She has no idea what I've been through. So that's not my person, right? But they're gonna vibe with you, Melony, and those are your people. And so I think that people really need to be humble and, like you said, reach out and ask for that help. There's something you always talk about that is to work from overflow and not overwhelm. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah. So I kind of was leading to that a little bit about that pause and filling yourself up. A lot of times, and just, blink or put a comment below if you are saying yes to things you really don't want to say yes to. Mm-hmm. You're doing it out of obligation and you're thinking, I really don't want to do this. Or you're thinking, I'd really like to do this, but I don't know how I would do it. Mm-hmm. So in the Bible, it talks about abiding in him and in pruning things. And so it was something that I really learned when I went through my discipleship. And so it's called working from rest. And so when one of the things that I do, I have a process in my program that I take people through where we really look at your calendar and have you schedule in your rest first. And then the work, because most of the time we're saying, let me look at my calendar before I can say if I can do that. Right. Yep. And so I would say this is the biggest life-changing thing. If I could give you guys a tip that happened for me, is that I started scheduling. There's a whole process, but the first thing that I did that I would just give you is to take one day a month and have it be for yourself. Mm. That needs to be doing something that fills you up. And for everybody, it's different. What fills Heather up and what fills me up is totally different. And in different seasons, it will be different. So at one part when I first started, it was for me to be able to get out of my house and to go see and have coffee with a friend. So if somebody asked me to speak or asked me to do anything, if it was the first Wednesday of the month, my answer was always no. Because nothing was more important than me. And I had at that point to start loving myself and take caring of me so that I could take care of everybody else. Right. And that was hard because sometimes there was opportunities or things. And quite frankly, if you're like, people will reschedule and they'll be willing to bring you in another time. Now, if it's like, getting on your ideal, like your dream place kind of thing, you might actually do it. But if you take that like for me, if I took that Wednesday and I did something different, I had to make sure I had found another day that was protected. That was 100, so I might drive to the beach. So what I would like you guys to think about is what things fill you up, right? Like right now we're in COVID, so it's a little different, but what fills you up? Is it reading? Is it having coffee with a friend? Is it going for a walk? Is it driving to the woods? Is it getting to the beach? Like, what is it? And then find something in the next 7 days and do it and have someone help hold you accountable. So the next 7 days, find something that fills you up and holds you accountable. Then I would say block one day off in October and don't let anything get on it and fill yourself up. So this is part of like being able to fill yourself and get that clarity so that you have the rest so that you can pour out and fill with other people. A lot of times we are trying, when you look at a coffee cup, I don't have one right here, I apologize. If you look at a teacup or coffee cup, they come with a saucer. Mm-hmm. And we're trying to fill from a cup that's full, or a lot of times our cup is half full and we're still trying to pour out. Well, really what that's saying is that we're not supposed to pour from anything that's in the cup, whether it's half full or it's full. We're supposed to be serving from what's in the saucer. All the extra. That's where we're supposed to be pouring out to everybody else, which that was a whole new concept for me. So I was, I really talk about, it is really important to serve from our overflow, to be able to do it working from rest, and to use the gifts that we have. And when we're using the right gifts, it's easy because we're not trying to be somebody else.
Yes. Yeah. And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because I always thought, well, that's, me being who I am. I kind of look at that as lazy. I mean, I love that. I love that, not lazy in a bad term, but lazy, like it's just easier. It is so much easier to work in a space that is your zone of genius. Like you had mentioned being a photographer. I'm sure you could go online and teach classes but that's not what you want to do, right? I mean, there's lots of things that I'm good at, but I don't want to do those things. So I love that you focus on what your gift is. I love that you say to take one day a month. And I think for a lot of people, that's a really scary concept and a really selfish concept, but it's not. And I also love that you say, like, remain firm in that. When people, and you bring up such a beautiful point, Melony, we seem to think that if we don't fit in everybody else's boxes, they're not going to invite us in anymore. So when a client calls you and says, well, let's see, I can do it on Wednesday. And Melony looks at her calendar. She's like, nope, that's my personal day. And she says, oh, okay, well, I'm not available then, but how about Thursday at 1? 9 times out of 10, the clients will say, yeah, sure, that works. Like they don't care. They really don't care. It's us thinking I have to bend over backwards, right? It's me thinking I have to take phone calls till 7 o'clock at night. It's me thinking I have to see clients whenever they say they want to see me. No, establish your calendar. Like you said, pull out your calendar, figure out when you're going to see clients, when you're going to do your business development, and everything else can fit into your box. Right. And I also love that you said that you don't cancel that time for anybody. And that you also, and this is so important because I don't think people hear this enough, you put yourself on your calendar first. Right. We always put our to-dos and when we've got to take the kids somewhere and when we've got to do something for our spouse or when we've got networking meetings or when we have to do that. And then whatever little teeny tiny spaces are left over, if there are any, then we might schedule ourselves in. But I love how you flip that. You say, like I'm on my calendar first. The rest of you can fit into the cracks. I love that you said that. That's such a beautiful way of looking at it.
Well, and some of you may be hearing that, like, that's really hard to hear. I mean, let me tell you, I've been married for 16 years and I have 2 girls and they are my world. So that's really, really hard. But when we get on a plane, what do they say? They say, put on the mask first. And you guys, I was at the place where I had to put the mask on first and I had to like really look at like, how do I do this differently? And so that's something that I really wish, like when I went through that 2-year grief cycle and I pretty much lost my business. And I lost a lot of myself. I wish somebody could have told me. So what I do is I really try to teach people some of the things that I wish I had known. Right. And I think like, if you're thinking like, oh, well, what do I have to offer somebody? Think about like, what do you wish somebody would have told you? Right. So that's a lot of like, part of that is like, what do I wish that somebody had told me or what I had known? But in doing that, I mean, you guys, that's 12 days a year. Even when you say it, sometimes I'm like, oh, but I have to remind myself that's only 12 days a year. That's only 12 days a year. I'm putting myself first between everybody else. And it allows me to serve so many more people. Because if we want to create income, impact, and influence, we have to be able to be something that radiates what somebody else would want to be. Like somebody has to look at it and go like, I could do that, or what she's doing, I want to do. Right. Like if we're talking about our business, if we're talking about our personal life, our children are watching us. You are a leader. They're watching us. So we need to make sure that we are teaching our children or other people how to do that and how to be radiant.
Well, and I love that you brought up income, influence, and impact. So you brought up a really nice point, a segue into the fact that yes, children are watching us, right? And other people in your business space are watching you. And are you leading by example, or are you talking out of this side of your mouth, out of your face, right? And running your business a completely different way out of the other side of your face. So I love that you bring up the influence and the impact, because you're right, people are watching. And for children especially, a lot of times it's what's caught versus what's taught. Yeah. Right. And if you're running around like a screaming banshee all the time and you're stressed and but then you're telling your children, you need to find some time to relax. Well, mom doesn't do that, right? Show them, model for them, and model for your clients what that looks like. And what's interesting, Melony, is when you said that's only 12 days out of the year, I'm thinking, oh, that's not enough. Like that's.
Oh. Well, I do more than that now. I do more than like I said, there's a whole system, but just know that's where I began. Right. Yeah. Because I want to say that because if there's anybody, it was the biggest gift for me coming back. biggest gift because I wanted to have time, but there was no time. My plate was so full.
Yeah.
And I was in that overwhelmed and I was stuck and I needed to change my life. And so I had to learn how to take better care of myself. I had to learn how to ask for the help. But what I would also say is, you guys, like if for business, it's great. Like if, say Heather, like you and I, we do business together, but I really want to get to know Heather. And I'm like, well, we should, I'd really like to go for a hike with you, or I'd like to sit down and have lunch with you, like, and just not do business, but, more on a personal level, get to know you. There was no time in my schedule. Church, I kept passing people and saying, we should have coffee. And so what would happen, a great example is like, I was at Costco one day and my friend Melissa, I really had been wanting to get together. And I was like, you know what, Melissa, I know that I have something in October, but November, I don't have anything planned yet for my first Wednesday. So do you have anything the first, like, I wouldn't even know the date, but my friend could pull her phone up and I'd be like, do you have anything the first Wednesday in November? And she's like, nope. And I'm like, okay, put down 10 o'clock. Once I drop the kids off from school, we'll figure out what we're going to do. And it's your day. It's like you and me, we're going to do it. And so like, that was so, and like, if I did decide to drive to the beach, that would be the day I would ask my mom to pick up the kids. Right. So, but if otherwise I'd have the 4 hours and it would be whatever I want. And just, it was a time to relax, that to clear my mind, to have that. And then it really, when I say it speaks about different seasons, you guys, for me, it went from being with friends to like, I was pouring out to everybody that I needed to be home. That was my time to not go anywhere, to live in sweats for the day, to have a messy bun and not get ready, and to read a book or read my Bible or watch a TV show. And that's what I did. So it can be different. It can be different in different seasons. And I just want to kind of show you that example, because at one point I really needed to be with people. At another place, I needed to just be home. And both are okay.
I love that. And I love that you, going back to when you said going to the beach, like if that was my going to the beach day, I would call my mom to pick up the kids. And I think for a lot of women, they're like, is that legal? Are you allowed to do that? Are you allowed to go to the beach without your kids? Yeah, absolutely. Right. And probably your mom was thrilled that you were taking some time out for you. She's like, yeah. And she got to spend some time with the kids. Right. So we seem to think that, I could never ask my mom to do that. Well, how do you know? You never have, right? Have you ever talked to a girlfriend and said, could you take the kids for this day? This is my time. And hey, listen, in 3 weeks, I'll take your kids. We'll do a swap or something. People are so willing to help. And we think we're being a burden, right? I don't want to ask, but we know, at least I know from my heart, when people ask me to help them, I love to help people, give people that opportunity to love on you, to help you. And yeah, you're right. And I love the visual of the overflow, the working from the, we're supposed to be giving from the saucer. If you run yourself ragged and you're sick, or you're depressed, or you can't give to anybody. So what good are you at that point, right? You're feeding the purpose.
Yeah. And you just said something, Heather, if I might. Do you guys see how Heather said, and I love to help people? Like genuinely, she loves to do that, right? Like she would love to help another mama, or she would love to, like, I know in business, we've talked about business things, like things that have been, she would love to help somebody there, right? It makes you feel good, because that is a gift of hers. Because you're using a gift, right? Like you're giving, but you're identifying in a gift, in that piece where you feel valued. It's easy for you because, hospitality is, I'm guessing, is probably an easy gift of yours, something that comes naturally to you. So in that, when I almost want to say, like, if, like, I'm a huge visionary, you guys, I'll just say it this way. Like, I am a visionary. Like, I can see bigger, big things. But sometimes I do struggle with seeing the little details, because I'm up here. I didn't see that we needed 3 people to do this, right? So that's why, for me, a detailed person really complements working with me. Somebody who's really in that, administrative role, or somebody who loves to do like all the details in systems and that kind of stuff, like on the computer. Like, I can tell you what system you need. I can help you create a system, but it's like that minutia of doing the same implementation over and over, I don't really like. I can, I just use that for example, because there are people that love that.
Yes.
Absolutely love that. And so for me to be able to find that person to work with, like now I have Jennifer who's working with me, it's beautiful. She's working in her gifts and she makes me that much better.
Yes. Oh, I love that you said that. I love that you said that because there's too many entrepreneurs, I think, especially women, female entrepreneurs, that we have to do it all. And quite frankly, I turned 49 yesterday. I'm too tired to do it all. I don't want to do it all. And that's not my zone of genius. Could I figure out how to do, like you were saying, the stuff that wasn't really my zone of genius? Absolutely. I'm smart enough. If I don't know, I could probably Google it. But do I want to do that? And that's another thing that they were talking about this weekend at this 3-day event. Don't spend, $10,000 time on penny projects, right? Find the people that are willing to do that. And the people that don't have like your gift of vision, right? You're up here. And quite frankly, if you're up here and you're doing visionary work, you don't need to do this work and this work at the same time, right? Your gift is up here and I don't know how I'm going to make this happen, but we're going to make it happen. And your zone of genius is that if you don't do it, where and how to find the people that will do it and who love to do it. I love that minutia. I love the little detail work, and not everybody does. So and you need to collaborate with people that complement, each other. So you had already said it at one point. You said, one of my questions is to people is, if you could go back and tell yourself, your 25-year-old self, that like, if I knew then what I know now, what would be the one thing that you would tell somebody coming up that needs to hear, maybe your little nuggets of genius of stuff, because your knees are bloodied now, right? You've been through a couple battles.
Well, I think the thing that I would personally love to tell myself is that you're lovable. Right? Like you really are lovable, and the gifts that you have really matter. Like the things that like you see, like don't give up on that. Like, don't just to keep going through, like just because one thing doesn't happen, just to keep, maybe I would teach myself how to be a little bit more persistent. I've learned, I never give up. I'm a very loyal person. I don't give up. But I think when I was younger, I really felt like that comparison, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, well, if that person, why is it different for that person than for me? And so, I really struggled with a period in my life where, I know that I'm lovable now, and a lot of people will look at me now and say, how do you have that confidence? There was a period I didn't have that, you guys. And so I would just want everybody to know that you are lovable, that God loves you, that the gifts you have are unique and can be, are very, very valuable, and that you make a difference in this world.
Mm-hmm.
And, the things, those desires in your heart that you have, like God put them there for a reason. And, and I think that's the fun part, like just to keep doing it and to go for it. Like I used to want to be a news broadcaster when I was younger. And I laugh now because I interview people a lot. So it came back in a whole different way. Like I don't really realize how it was, but it's like I love to travel, I love to interview people, and I love to speak. And so, I'm using my voice in a different way. But just to say that, I would say that to people, like, don't worry so much about what other people think of you. Don't worry, because I think as we get adults and we niche down in our businesses and really get to hone in where we're good at, or if we look at who our friends are. Some of my friends that I had, I can think of my friends. I've had, my friend Jenny that I've had since I was in first grade. Like she's always been my friend, and she never, she loved me for who I was the whole time. So if you really think about that, who was that person? And some people are just there for a season in our life, and that's okay. Right. So if someone's there for a season, just ask yourself, like, what did I learn? What lessons did I learn?
Mm-hmm.
What was it that I need to take away from this? And to know that no matter what, you're lovable. And I think that's one of the things that really, really, really drives me, is that your gift that you have is important. Somebody, we always say, like, somebody does need it, right? And some of our, best gifts come wrapped in sandpaper, but I would just say that, take it, learn from it, love yourself and love others. And the other thing I'd probably tell myself is, your body looks good. Don't worry about it so much. If I can get my 25-year-old body back again, Heather, come on now.
Yes. Oh yeah. I remember I had this little tiny pair of jeans that are like this big. And I'm looking back when I was a teenager thinking, oh, you need to lose weight. It's like, how much time have we spent beating ourselves up? I love that you bring up excuse me, I love that you bring up the comparing, because that is such a huge thing, especially now with social media, right? There's no shortage of pictures like on Instagram and Pinterest of these people that are leading these ideal lives, and they're out on the Riviera in their boat, and ugh. I look at those people and I think, if we all put all of our problems in the center of a room and looked at everybody else's problems, chances are we take back the problems that we own, right? Because everybody's got something. You have no idea what struggle people are going through, right? You have no idea. I mean, there's a gal in a multi-level marketing business that she is a multi-millionaire, and just this dynamo. And she went to Harvard and she did this. She came to her first meeting with a black eye because she was in a domestic violence situation for years. But when she was public facing, no one had any idea, right? And everybody wanted to trade places with her. Well, chances are you wouldn't want to trade places with her if you knew the situation she had to go home to. So I think jealousy and envy is a really, really, really powerful tool to propel you forward if you use it in the right way, right? I am a finite person with a finite amount of energy. I've only got so much energy to spend on things. I spend energy on the things that I can control. And I can't control the fact that I'm not 6'3". I don't have legs up to my neck. I'm not bleach blonde. I'm not, I didn't hit the genetic lottery when it came to gorgeous hair and teeth. And this is what I've got to deal with, right? I guess I could go on Pinterest.
I would say maybe that's what you're allowing your mind to tell yourself. Because I think you did hit the jackpot, Heather.
Aw, thank you.
Right? Like, you are beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
You're a bombshell that's a redhead.
Thank you.
You have the biggest heart, right? And I think, like, it's, we don't have, like, what you're saying is that's not what this is. But really, you are exactly what you need to be.
Exactly. And that's the point I want to make. It's like, if I went on Pinterest and looked up thigh gap, right, that little tiny space between if I wanted to spend all of my energy that I have on working on that, yeah, I could probably attain that, but that's not my thing. I don't want to attain that. I want to work on things that I can control and things that are going to help me move forward and bring other people with me. So I look at jealousy is not necessarily a bad thing if you're going to use it as a tool to propel yourself forward, meaning she has a successful business and I want to have a successful business, but my business is not going to look like her business, nor should it, nor will it. But just the idea that there's somebody out there that's made it, I'm going to use that model, that there's room at the top for everybody. That's the only thing I'm going to draw from her experience. But I'm not going to try to be, like I said, blonde, 6'3" with legs up to my neck. And I realize my gifts, and I think I'm a pretty special person if I do say so myself, right? I realize my gifts, but my gifts aren't, those are the gifts that I'm working with. And that's what I'm going to try to focus on and put on my little blinders and realize that I am gifted and I'm blessed. And this is where I want to spend my energy, is to hone those gifts. So
I love it.
Yeah. Woo. Woo. This was a good one, Melony. I just adore spending time with you. You were just such
having me
uplifting spirit. And I'm really glad that we're collaborating on some things here. So I want to let people know how they can get in touch with you. And then did you have any sort of goodie or gift or pass along that you'd like to share with our audience?
I do, yeah. And I can get you a link to that too. So you can find me across social media at melony.buenger. And I'm sure you'll put that in the notes, but it's MELONY.BUENGER. So across all platforms, Melony Buenger. Melony.Buenger. And then my website is just melonybuenger.com. So, you guys can just reach out and connect with me. I have different programs that I would love to share with you. But what I really wanted to give everybody, and I think is so big, is I have a God-sized goal roadmap, because we all have goals. But what I really like to help people with is that God-sized goal, that goal that we think so big or maybe not obtainable, or we don't even know how it's going to happen. I have a system that I help people with to identify that and walk them through. So you can get that. There's a link we'll put below, and you can also find that on my website for a God-sized goal roadmap, complimentary to you, to really just have you pause and take a look. And I want to say that sometimes people don't know what their gifts are. So it kind of helps you identify what those, like some things to really say, like what they would be. And if you need some help, I can also help you deep dive into that, because that was one thing that took me a while to figure out what was it. And for me, it's my voice. It's been my voice all along. But, and many other things, but, my voice is to share the message and to help other people be inspired.
Yes. I just got cold chills. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I so appreciate it. I will put Miss Melony's links down below to her gift and to her contact information where you can find her and how to work with her, etc., etc. So thank you so much, Miss Melony, for being here today for Bold Breakthroughs. This is our weekly installment of getting together with women who have bold breakthroughs in their business and in their lives. And Melony, you certainly qualify for that. I just love you and adore you. So
bye. Thank you so much.
yeah, absolutely. Take care, everybody. We'll check out next week.
Belated birthday to Heather. Everybody drop a happy birthday in the link below. It was our birthday yesterday. So if you're watching the replay and you're here now, just wish her a happy birthday. That'll be a good one. Be blessed.
Thank you guys. Bye. I'll find it. I wonder how many people have sore cheeks from waiting until the person hits the end. You all know what I'm talking about.